Hello everyone and welcome back to the fourth class meeting, section number 3. We're going to continue with our discussion that we've been having, which has really been about just the overall, I guess, stats system, more or less. This is just general brainstorming, just hearing different people's thoughts, that's all. Now, these videos are gonna run long, but for those of you that are in the class, that's the beauty of being able to just fast forward through. I'm wanting to capture all of this stuff, so if something does evolve from these meetings, those of you that would like to see the progression of how it evolved, you'll have all of the content. So anyways, continuing on, just a second ago, Gavin, you said you wasn't sure if Chris was back yet? Oh, yeah. Right. Well, sounds like Chris may not be back, but that's cool.
He'll be back.
He'll be back soon enough. So, all right, where exactly did we leave off? Anybody remember?
I really don't.
Well, you were talking about real world experience gaining stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then George had made the comment over in the IRC. And then we had the other comment about what, just the idea of going out to the lake and running around in circles and or it brings back memories of Zach taking a toothpick and sticking it down in his Xbox controller for sneaking, if I...
Oh, yeah. I got to be a pro sneaker in Oblivion by employing a toothpick in the joystick and just sneaking at a wall. All you had to be in an area in Oblivion where there's an enemy who might be able to see you, and then just get close by and sneak at a wall, plug in your controller, and walk away for several hours, and your sneaking becomes max to the point where you can just sneak right up to somebody's face and hit them in the head, and you won't be seen.
Yes, Flash just said that is not how it was intended to be played, but that's just the nature of games in general. People are always going to look for exploits.
Loopholes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Go ahead,
and
Nelson.
then, though, like I said 6 times in the IRC, what if you just only apply this sort of thing in a combat situation?
Well, because combat's not going to be the crux of every single part of the game.
Half-Life 2.
Well, go ahead. What do you mean, Nelson? Apply only in a combat-like situation. Elaborate, please.
For example, in Oblivion, I used to I liked I think it was acrobatics and restoration. So I put out my healing spell, and I constantly I wouldn't fast travel. All I would do is just hop basically to my destination, holding down the cast button to continuously heal myself.
Well, I'll do you one better. Just outside, what is it, the main city? I think it's like the western exit in Oblivion. There's this really, really, really steep hill, and your acrobatics goes up by how far you fall. So you jump down that hill, and you hurt yourself each time you jump because it's such a steep jump that you're actually falling pretty far as you jump forward, and then heal yourself when you get to the bottom, hop all the way back up to the top of the hill, and then repeat. Do that just for, I don't know, maybe an hour of your day, and your restoration and your acrobatics are now also at max. So if you did that along with the little sneaking thing I mentioned earlier, you were a sneaky acrobatic self-healer who was just incredible at that stuff.
There was a fire spell that you could cast that would damage yourself. And I'd alternate casting that spell, damaging myself, and healing it. So I got my evocation and healing ramped up to max.
See? It's fantastic, all these loopholes.
Yeah, loopholes. But, again, back to... Ooh, Angie, can I beg and plead for coffee? Be awesome. Yeah, class is still going. All right.
I like some coffee.
Well, go make some, Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee, please.
You guys are a little too far away. Otherwise, Angela's a sweetheart. She'd whip you guys all some up.
Yeah, she probably would.
But you're so far away.
But see, what I was thinking earlier was, if we were still sticking with an idea that was kind of like, how we have the derived skills, and I realized that I could still bring up the original board. But if you wanted to, these could be further broken up. I'm sorry, my handwriting is just falling down through the floor tonight. You could have combat-derived skills, and for now, for simplicity's sake, we'll just say non-combat. So very, very general. Now, your general stats, these could just increase. Like, if you were using this sort of thing where, based on whatever derived skill you use to defeat an enemy or perform any task, the amount of experience points is divided up by that percentage and then assigned to each one of your general stats. And then you have kind of like a progress bar hovering over each one, so that the amount of experience that gets divided up will eventually fill this progress bar all the way up. And once it gets filled... Oh, you need the mouse?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot we're on the same computer.
Okay, and then once that fills, then, let's say your body will increase from 100 to 101. So that's an idea. But, like, somebody was worried... one of the last things I remember being discussed before we took the break was how to know if you are... I don't want to use the word level because we're trying to get away from the idea of leveling. But how to know if you are a high enough level? And
that is actually where we left off at.
Yeah, that sounds right.
How do you determine one against another as far as...
Well, to me, it's going to be kind of like a balancing act, and I would just specify it as delta. Because you're going to have these stats when you start the game. And maybe your stats are going to be different based on the type of class that you are. Maybe, a mage is going to have a lot more mind than he's going to have body, just, as a case in point. But as you play the game, those stats are going to go upward. And so you could have, like, a combat delta, so that, all of your combat-derived skills, as those start to increase, like, let's say, in the case of a mage, your lightning spells have increased by 1... and I'm just totally making this up off the top of my head, by the way. Your fire skills have now maybe increased by 2, and so your total delta is 3. And so that could be used because that gives an indication of how much you've improved as you've played the game. It's not equivalent to a level per se, but it does kind of show how many skills you have improved throughout gameplay.
And
I don't even know if that would be useful. It's just
Gavin
an idea.
said to say hi, just let you know. Thank you very much. Zach, I'm gonna throw this back out real quick. Just before we get too far away from it, I see exactly what you're saying, and I know I'm going to irritate people with this. And for those of you that I am irritating, please just roll with it. How do we do it in the real world? I don't look at you and go, "Whoa, Zach is obviously a level 84."
Right. Well, I mean, if you want to take
which is really interesting, because if I decided I wanted to pick a fight with you because you have that spiky hair that just pisses me off.
Probably.
And I have no hair, so I must kick your butt. But I don't know anything about your ability. Now, I can, just by looking at you, I have an idea of maybe general strength, and your endurance, obviously, it's going to be a lot better than mine.
Yeah.
That's about all I have. I'm just...
Well, but if we're about to pick a fight with one another, you may or may not know that. And just like in WoW... I have no idea. I know that up to a point, I can tell somebody's level if I click on them, and then WoW does that stupid thing with just question marks, which is just another way of saying, thou shalt not mess with this person, basically.
Well, I could just...
Tier 10 gear looks a hell of a lot better than somebody at level 5's running around with.
If you have time to analyze their gear, and you don't just see a red flash while somebody runs at you and starts, spamming an attack.
Exactly.
You see,
Now, in reality... I could do this. I could Google you. I could use, computers and communication to see that, oh, my God, he does have karate training and is a very athletic person. And holy crap, he's actually worked for this mercenary team and has killed a bunch of people as well. Not good. Or see that you're one of FBI's most wanted. I'm just throwing out ideas. And I know that's not very fast like how you're in World of Warcraft and you just click on somebody and it's like, oh, they have 102,000 health and they have a crap load of intellect and they're level 85. Well, not today.
See, this comes back to, from my point of view, I would go with what I was saying earlier, in the same way as with the levels, not giving them the lower access, the access to the lower level parts of it, but only the higher. But that's thrown me completely.
You can do it. Come on, Gavin.
Yeah,
you can do it.
Come back.
Come on, Gavin. Come on.
As an example, when you hover over the person you're interested in, unless you've have some other particular knowledge or some skill that gives you a more precise answer, you would get some kind of graphic like a pie chart in 3 colors that showed you the relative strengths that they had based on what their body, mind, and soul were. And those
That's already
would,
given me a lot more information than
But it-
what I get in World of Warcraft.
I don't know, not having played it.
Yo, we're going to
But
fix
in
that
terms
very
of-
soon.
In terms of not actually giving you the numbers on it, unless, well, it would just literally, if it was a circular pie chart centered on the character's mesh, in,
Right on
say,
their face.
red, blue, and yellow sectors, you'd see the relative proportions of body, mind, and soul, but not the numbers on how good they are. So you could look at someone and say, well, he's quite lean and he looks quite acrobatic, so he's probably...
See, I keep going back
you see
to...
where I'm going with
I
that?
do. And I keep going back to the world that we've created, and I'm more interested in playing the human side because I'm such a gadget whore. Forgive me for saying that. And I see myself having something rather built into my body, onto my arm or something, or some sort of device I can get to quickly, where if I see you, I could query the global national registry or whatever to find out information about you, or if I had hacks into back channels, find out perhaps even more detailed information about you.
See, but I don't know about that.
It'd be-
It's
it'd
like,
be
Yeah,
cool,
but
though.
that's assuming that everybody in the game is registered.
That
in this.
exactly. That also means that you're going to have people that simply may not be.
Yeah, well, it would be kind of interesting in well, in any PVE that is not instigated by you, or PvP, it'd be kind of interesting to have some sort of skill that allows you to skew what they can see of you
Absolutely.
as far as your stats. Not just making you appear a much lower power, but maybe making your abilities seem different to where they are, so the person attacking you attacks you in a different way than how they would normally.
And going back to the example I was just doing with the pie chart, with your special goggles that tie you into the computer network, they would then tie in with that, in that they would give you, or the better ones would give you the actual numbers coming up, and the really good ones would give you more precise information.
Yeah, and then I really like
But-
what Nelson said, because that would be absolutely awesome if you had some sort of ability to get into a system. Again, I'm going to take the cheesy route out at the moment. You had some sort of hacking skill, and you could actually get in and skew your numbers, or the way that somebody perceived you when they looked at this information. And I've seen this happen, and Zach, you have as well, in World of Warcraft. We had a good friend of ours that was an amazing PvP player, Christina, and every time she logged out of WoW, she always put on her crappy gear, always, so that when the armory updated, when you log out, it always showed her as being, wow, that's a crappy player with crappy gear. And it worked really well for her, for people that wanted to fight with her, that went over to the armory and looked her up first, because you have a lot of looking up in the armory that takes place in World of Warcraft for your more serious players that want to know more detailed information about someone. And it's like, oh, she's crap. And of course, when she's actually playing, she had amazing gear on. And I always found it to be pretty entertaining, because I could always take a look at her on the armory, and she was always wearing some sort of really crappy getup. But it worked out really well for her, and she had a lot of fun doing that. And that's kind of like what Nelson's going at, in a way. I take it, Nelson.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
we're
I'm here. I was just looking
I'd like
over at what Mr. Aiden Rico said. Busby J, the world we live in. Think like in school. See, the kids that are strong are famous by reputation, no numbers. True. I know that many of you guys aren't, and even Zach's not going to like some of the stuff I'm saying, but I'm wanting to try to adventure, if possible, down other possible routes. Go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, I just want to tie together kind of what Nelson's point about that he spammed into the IRC earlier, and the derived skills that are there on the screen on the left that Zach was drawing up, about making skills combat only. What and why not, rather than just having combat and non-combat, break it into 3 again? Because I think a certain amount of the charm of Chris's system that he's got there is the sort of fractal nature of it. It's 3 and then into 3s and into 3s. Everything seems to be based around 3
Okay.
axes, if you like. So, for instance, I mean, I don't know whether this would be directly applicable, but rather than just having, say, combat and non-combat, have different, have the body, mind, and soul skills apply in only when they're, get XP in one of the 3 key areas, only when that's the primary requirement for the skill in use, rather than, or weight it, I don't know, and differ that based on whether it's a combat related trait or not.
I can say
because
this.
Again, it comes down to I'm sort of come at this from the real world, and I would prefer not to see levels at all, or and just have it naturally occurring. Because the one other thing I wanted to throw in was the idea that just because you're getting better as a hero of great stature or whatever, doesn't mean you're better at everything. And I really want I'm really behind the idea that things should get worse if you don't do them. The example off the top of my head is I studied the double bass for 5-6 years, but that was like about 8 years ago now. And if I picked one up today, I would not be able to get a scale out of it. My fingers have gone soft, and I've lost the muscle memory to find where the notes are. And certainly wielding weapons and fighting and conning people out, whatever the things that you do in a game of this sort are, they're the sort of things that get better with practice and they dry up. They're not like riding a bike. You try and swing a bastard sword just offhand when you haven't used one since you were a wee trainee, and likelihood is you're going to make a complete hash of it and get your limbs chopped off.
But that would be something that, I don't know if you're watching the IRC, there's already people saying yuck with diminishing skill sets, but that would have to be something that would really occur over a long period of time, because even right now, if you pick the base up, while you may not just tear it up,
well, I'll do
one
one
further.
further. It would be
more like a hiatus whereby I could get back into it quicker. Because absolutely, because there's a certain amount of it that I still obviously know, but the actual, I'm in my head. This all is very much like a yin and yang affair across the whole thing.
Hang on 1 second.
The more you do one thing, the less you get for the other.
I follow you. Let's let Zach have the floor for a second. Go ahead,
I
Zach.
hear where you're coming from, and I like the idea in general. I don't think it would be satisfying for most game players, and that's another really important thing. But at the same time, if you were going to do that, you'd want to make sure that the time duration used to deplete, even if it was just like you get rusty. Like for instance, picture a blue progress bar that determines how good you are with your bastard sword. A bright blue, glowing progress bar that gets bigger the more you use your bastard sword. And this thing is now long because you're the greatest swordsman that ever lived.
I so want that sword.
I know you do. But then, you start using your crossbow for, I don't know, a month.
Well, that's just gay.
Well, maybe you like it.
I like my sword.
But
Sorry.
but you change, right? Now, the way I'm picturing what you're saying is our great big blue bastard sword progress bar doesn't necessarily get smaller, but the end of it, the far side of it, is no longer glowing. It's now a darker progress bar. You still have all that skill, but that difference, that darker wedge of it at the end, is showing how rusty you've become. And so you need to grab your bastard sword back up and build that back up over the next hour. Yes, exactly.
So you're going to jump into a combat fight, and you're going to, instead of doing 1,000 points of damage, you're going to do 900 points of damage, and then 925, 950, boom, back up to 1,000.
Right, and I would have that rustiness work out very quickly. Like, you really could go out...
Yeah, it's a real sawtooth.
But I would rather have it so that when you work out that rustiness, then other things get rusty.
And well, that's what I was getting at earlier. I don't even know if I would really like that system at all. I was just trying to find a way to explain it that made sense to me. In a way that was remotely satisfying. Now, another approach to it, and this is kind of what Nelson, I think, was getting at, and I was going to make this as a next point, so I'm going to get it out before Nelson starts freaking out on me, is you can I think it would make sense to try as best you can to have skills line up in pairs that worked like a tug of war. So that,
oh, please, yes.
So that, if you are really good with melee combat and your bastard sword axe, I don't really give a damn what kind of melee weapon it is. If you switched over to ranged combat, you're now diminishing, you're depleting how good you are at melee combat just because the two types of skills are so outlandishly different from one another.
That is where I started from, and I've had it beaten away from me by every conversation I've had with everyone. But that is exactly where I came from. The whole idea of the seesaw of skills which trade off against each other is, yes, I'll play your game then. Excellent.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nelson.
Go ahead, please.
It's been so long. I started playing Star Wars Galaxies when it came out, and I stopped playing it like maybe a year after, and it's just so long ago. But I vaguely recall how their system worked initially. I know it's been revamped like 15 times since it came out. But maybe has anyone here played it when it came out?
Which one's this? I'm sorry.
Galaxies.
Oh man, no, not in so many years that it's just stupid. I don't remember anything about it other than I tried to play a Zabrak character, got bored the first night, and sold my account.
And yeah, to a good friend of ours who is an absolute addict over the game, has multiple accounts, but I know that the way it was originally when it first came out, in his mind, is the only way. Because it was the best thing ever, and then apparently they changed it, and they changed it, and they changed it, and they changed it, and it just kept getting worse and worse, and now I guess he plays on a
homebrew server.
Yeah, homebrew servers that are being maintained on the net or something that's back to the old school way of how Star Wars Galaxies originally was, because it sucks so bad now, according to him. So that's all I know about it. Go ahead, Nelson.
I vaguely remember that you had professions, and you can only have a certain amount of professions active.
Okay.
And then as you did something in that profession, you got better with it. I vaguely remember that's how it worked.
Harry Sun said like 20 of them.
It says 28
of them. 28 of them. I'm sorry, I'm blind.
Sounds possible.
Can I just, before it scrolls off the screen, Buzz, Enrico has an interesting, what I think might be an interesting point. At 323.
323. Oh, I don't have a 323. You talking about where Busby J trying to help thinking in your way. Terrans might get promoted instead of levels. What that means in Terran society, like fame, weapons, food, girls. Ooh, girls. While Lithians get wiser, receiving respect and status.
What if they want girls and fame and weapons and food?
But they could, but that's part of the whole
making
it a separate thing from an actual experience-related level. It would be a reflection of it, like a promotion.
Yeah, and to me that would all just boil down to semantics. You just call it something else to make the role-playing aspect feel better, but underneath the hood, what's going on should be equal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I'd be offended if the implication was that humans can't get wiser.
We can't, Nelson. We're not capable, especially in a despotic system that was controlled by evil corporations, Nelson. Evil.
Oh, no,
corporations.
please. We're not going to get onto that again. Please. We should have just recorded that the other night and put that up as a video for everyone, because that Nelson and Zach went at it for an hour. And no, I don't want to listen to evil corporation speech again. I can't take that right now. Let's stay on this.
Okay, well, anyway, like, I think, what's his face? Lynch, or Lyrich. Lyric. Okay. You had enough points for 2.5 professions total, and I think that's what I remember, is that you selected which professions you wanted to get good at, then you worked on them until you got, good at them. And I don't know, I don't like the idea of having a player be able to get it all, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
You have to force them to make choices during their gameplay of what skills they want to play as. And I think that's important, and I think that can also tie into what Gavin was saying, because once you start working in another profession, you can get to the point where like, then to go back to what Zach was saying, you can get to the point where every single profession has the blue bar filled all the way up, but you only have 2 of them active at the same time. Meaning you can only have 2 of them glowing at the same time, to go back to Zach's analogy.
Well, we definitely, I don't want us to get far off into professions by any means, because that's a whole other weekend worth of discussion for sure with all of the students. But I do know in World of Warcraft, that's something it frustrates me personally. I mean, we're limited to just 2, and Angela, myself, my brother all have multiple accounts just so that we can have multiple high-ranking professions. Now, they're limited on the number of professions that are available, and I understand you don't want somebody who's God at it all, but, there we go, Mr. Matroblin. I hate limits. Yeah, me too.
So do I.
But at the same time,
I understand them.
I understand them. I understand the need for them.
I don't want a Mr. Jobless basement dweller to beat me just based off the fact he has more time to pour into the game, to the point where he becomes master at all professions.
Yeah, but I'm
That's
gonna.
always going to happen.
But
because it's okay, and it's that's actually a reflection of the real world in its way.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're out there, like, let's just say the whole thing is real. Okay, the game itself, the MMO game is real.
Woo!
And you're running around in some forest with your nanite machine gun. I don't know. And you're taking down badass monsters. And across the way is another guy who just happens to have a nanite machine gun as well. But he's been doing this for months on end. And so he knows exactly where to shoot these guys. So he's just dropping them 3 times faster than you. That would be the way it is in the real world. He's just exposed to that, and he's used to it.
Experienced.
Yeah, he's experienced. Now, you got to step back from that. The guy who's in his basement is living in the game and doing that stuff a lot more often than you. So yeah, he's going to be more experienced, and he's going to be more powerful because he's been using the nanite cannon longer than you.
To go back to the real world, real world skills are so incredibly vast and complex that it's really impossible to master more than, I would say, even one of them. Like, for example, I spend all of my time doing programming-related stuff almost every single hour of every single day. If I was also a 3D modeler, then I would have to devote the exact same amount of time to 3D modeling, which is impossible because there's only 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to go back to the real world, generally people can't be, I mean, I'm sure they could be. It's physically, mentally possible for them to be. It's just not very common to be masters in more than one type of thing.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that. What I was getting at was the problem of the basement guy suddenly, if there's an issue with him being better at anything than you. If he's playing the game a lot more, yeah, he probably is.
I don't have a problem with him being better than me. I have a problem with him being better at more things. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying. And Wolf Knightley, you say, Zach, but what is the way that is more fun? At some point, fun has got to be deferred to the people who are playing the game more, because those are the ones who are going to keep spending their money with you as an MMO player. And so you've got to have a reward system, meaning that, yes, the people who play more are going to have to become more powerful than the people who play the game casually. That's not ideal for every player out there, and I understand that. But that's going to be the way that it will be, period.
Hang on, I can go ahead and drag this back over here.
Because if you don't, it's a casual game. It's Geometry Wars with a different skin.
Dare I bring up an old trope, but I'm not sure where everyone stands on it, but the idea that although people think they want to be able to be brilliant at everything, that really does result in a very dull game if they actually can. The difference between what a player thinks they want from a game and what actually makes for the most enjoyable game for them, whether they have had the chance to find out that it's dull being good at everything or not.
Exactly, like Minecraft, just like Yahtzee said it, where if you were just given all the materials, the actual building of whatever would be less fun.
Well, more
That's a
so
totally
Dwarf
misunderstood
Fortress,
it.
which completely thrives on the technicalities of it.
Well, let's see for a second. Wolf Knightley, are you in a position where I can bring you into this? As a matter of fact, you go ahead and get ready, sir. I'm going to bring you in. NATO, you've also... There you go, NATO. You've got something to say. I'm sorry. I didn't even realize you weren't with us.
That's okay. Nelson,
Harsh.
the problem you seem to have is that you're forgetting that it's not a game.
If the what?
Well, you're forgetting that this is a game, and it doesn't have to be a perfect representation of life, because if it were, it would just be life.
No.
Right.
You can give that lecture. You can give that lecture to me, not Nelson.
Yeah, the difference between you and Nelson is that you take, right, well, how would it work in life? And how does that equate to a good game mechanic? Nelson seems to be wanting to completely translate the...
No, I never said that. I just don't like the idea. I don't know. I think it's more fun to... I guess the thing is, the problem is that I play a lot of single-player games, and, for example, in Deus Ex, there's an ending. And once you get to the ending, you don't get any more skill points. There's no infinite amount of skill points, so therefore you can never master more than a few different skills because you only get a finite amount of skill points. Once you're in an MMO, you basically have an infinite amount of skill points because you can continuously play the game even after you've beaten all the story. So it gives you a different set of challenges, and I don't know if I'm really comfortable with someone being able to master everything, because then it sounds like the game would just get really boring to them.
But
Because there would be no need for him to team up with anybody else to do what he needs to do.
Yes, but the point is the amount of time he would have to spend doing that is so infinitesimally huge that it's much more worth the player's time to cooperate with other players.
Not
Right,
really. Let's say there's 20...
Let me finish. In WoW, they do put restrictions in. You can only have 2 professions. And if you want to learn another profession, you have to completely and utterly destroy all your previous experience. So basically, you completely forget everything you've learned and learn something new.
Yeah, that's how the Star Wars Galaxy thing worked.
Oh yeah, that's stupid.
I don't see it as stupid. You just said that it would take too long to master all the professions. No, it wouldn't. It's simple math. However long it takes to master one profession, multiplied by how many professions there are, is how long it would take someone to master all the professions.
Not really true in
And so
WoW's
let's say
case,
it
but I
takes-
see what you're saying.
Yeah, true.
So let's say it takes 2 months to master a single profession. There's 20 professions.
No,
That's
I'm not
only
saying it's
40
not.
months.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know what percentage of players would actually go right. I'm going to be 100% at everything. I can be, in terms of this MMO.
You know,
After seeing some of the stuff that was... Oh, or were you saying something?
No, go ahead, Nelson.
go ahead, Nelson, please.
No, after seeing some of the stuff that was built in the 3D Buzz Minecraft server, there are people who are willing to spend the amount of time to do that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and they should be rewarded for putting their time in.
But I see both sides of the story, NATO, because you can end up with somebody who literally is almost godlike in their way, at least in terms of the professional world, because they're not only a jack of all trades, they're a master of all trades. And yeah, okay, so let's just say I can see that as a problem. I don't want to sit here and get into a big long argument as to exactly why that's a problem.
No,
But let's just
it is.
let's just say it is. a way to work around that. Let's just say, for instance, we have, I don't know, 10 possible professions. What if you're only allowed a certain number of skill points to fill those professions up? You can put skills into any of them that you like, but you're only ever going to get enough skill points to max out 2 of them. Now, you can spread that cumulative number across all of them if it makes you feel good, but you'll never be able to max all of them out. Now, let's say you get them all at an equal, use up all your skill points to get them all equal. I have no idea what that would work out to, but let's just say they're all at like 50%. If you want to get them any higher, of course, you're going to have to start depleting for some. So the way you kind of make that a little easier for the player to manage is you have the ability to lock a skill so that that's not going to have its numbers pulled from. Because that one's important to you. Your jewel crafting or whatever is important, so I don't want that to be diminished while I build up my flower picking. So you lock jewel crafting, and then you go pick flowers. Your other skills will steadily drop, one by one, while you get better and better and better at picking flowers. Then when that's all maxed out and you're happy with it, lock that one, and now start going back to jewel crafting and suck down all your others to get that all maxed out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Apparently, that's exactly what Star Wars Galaxy is.
Oh, okay. Well, I have no idea. I didn't play enough Star Wars Galaxies to be able to tell you. Because that game hurt my face. I played the game for 10 minutes. I was a badass-looking Zabrak with a staff, and I got killed by a fuzzy brown worm, and that was the end of it. And we're talking little. It was the size of a hamster, and it kicked my butt, and I was done with the game.
I think Jason would probably like that game for the property owning and the governing aspects of it, unless they changed it. But that's besides the point. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable. The only thing is I hear NATO, his concern, and a lot of concerns, and I vaguely remember my own concern when I was playing it, is that when you start switching around your professions, you start losing time. Like, let's say it took like 2 days to get that one skill point in that one profession, and then you want to put another skill point in another profession. You've now lost those 2 days. It would be interesting to come up with a solution to that, to where the player doesn't feel cheated, but at the same time, if he does want to switch over to another profession, he still has to spend the time to get there, which sounds contradictory.
Okay.
You can add so many levels of complication, but you could add a level of, once you've learned it once, it takes you less time to learn it again.
I don't know. That's not unseen in WoW. People have maxed out a skill set and decided to trade, and then they have to dump a profession that may be maxed that took them a month or two to get there. So people are willing to do that if they want a different profession bad enough.
That's what I did.
I think Jason did it on one of his characters.
I did. Still sucked.
I did it on one of mine, too.
I was like, I've been mining for the last year, and now I'm going to trade in the knowledge of knowing how to sling my friggin' pick. All right. Now I have the knowledge to go pick up flowers. Hooray.
Yep. And I traded in picking flowers for building machines.
Yeah, there's no way I'm trading that in.
Yeah.
I love my engineering.
This is the thing. WoW seems to discourage players changing and I think it's to encourage sort of cooperation and an economy of trading of class skills, not class skills, profession skills, especially within guilds. So you want to put the cost on changing your professions, because you could, instead of going, oh, I need herbs. So instead of leveling a herber or changing your profession to herbing, you go on the auction house and just buy them off that. So it encourages more money to move, which makes the game seem more alive.
At the same time, and I know, at least for me, this applies to World of Warcraft, you don't always have the time to go out and pick flowers. There's definitely been times that I was in need of flowers for creating some of my potions and flasks that I was in need of. Did not have time to go pick flowers, so I still contributed to the economy by purchasing flowers that somebody else had taken the time to pick and put up on the market.
Yes, and it is picking flowers, guys. It's a World of Warcraft thing.
Yeah.
You use herbs to make stuff like potions and whatnot.
I was just going to throw that out there. I didn't mean
Herbs,
to,
whatever.
derail everyone. But
Yeah.
let me
and
go ahead, Nelson, real quick, and then let me get Wolf Knightley in here.
yeah, like in Star Wars Galaxies, you know, you have players where they have one character who is an artisan, and then they have another character who's a fighter or whatever, and they have their artisan build all their stuff, and they switch over to the other character, and then, you know.
Yeah, that's
stuff
how
like that.
that's how Robert did it. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's
It's a lot of how WoW works sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've been getting ready to do a raid and somebody's looking for a gem, and my brother's like, hang on 1 second. Yeah, I can cut that for you. Let me log out. I got to log into my other character. And, yeah, can you guys summon me there so I can, blah, blah, blah. And, all right, hang on. Let me log back in over this guy. He's got some stuff on him that I can do this with. And, yeah, it's just a bunch of back and forth with all of these different characters. It happens all the time, actually.
I don't see that as a big issue, though.
No, I'm not saying it's a big issue. I'm agreeing with Chris that, yeah, I see that all the time. Hang on 1 second now. Let me go ahead and I'm going to mute a couple of these real quick just to keep the system a little more simple. And Wolf Knightley, I don't have usernames over here, and I don't know your real name. What? Put your hand up, Wolf, over in the attendees list, so I'll know. Ha-ha! Mr. Steven.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I can't hear myself back.
But that's good. You don't want to hear
that's
yourself
actually
back.
good.
No. That's great.
It drive you insane.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
what you got?
Oh well, I was really wanted to ask you about back when you were talking about Oblivion. Did you play Oblivion?
I played it for a little bit, not much. That's back when we were on Dolphin Island.
Yep.
Working on the Unreal book, and that was how I was kind of trying to unwind at night. But I did not play. I probably logged no more than maybe 15 hours. Now, Zach, of course, played through that thing several times.
Yeah.
What you got?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was really into that all the things because it really a lot of the things that you're talking about really sound like what they did in Oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the idea, and I liked it at first, but eventually there was a number of things that just ended up killing it for me towards the end. So, you guys talked about how it could be exploited and stuff, and it definitely was. So
Right.
I'm definitely concerned about making the same mistakes as what I thought.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we at any point did explore any of that as a means of improving one's attributes, yeah, I would definitely want to make sure that it was something that was as exploitable the way that Oblivion was, where you could use a toothpick and a controller to suddenly make yourself a master at something.
Right, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another thing about Oblivion is that you could get really good at everything if you played for long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, you kind of lose. There's no real reason why not to get good at everything if you're gonna, play for long
Become
enough.
the ultimate soldier, basically.
Yeah, you're not just the. You're the ultimate warrior, the ultimate mage, the ultimate pickpocket.
Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but can't you do that in pretty much any game? I mean,
no, they tend to have limits. They tend to. They handle it very differently in a lot of different games, so it's kind of
Right. Well, I mean, some games don't even give you access to certain abilities based on your class.
right.
oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, like WoW, for instance.
Well, I mean, I would definitely envision there would have to be some sort of trade-off.
There'd have to be a trade-off. What I was thinking earlier, and I hadn't really had a chance to voice it or explore it much, was just building off of what we've been discussing so far, which again has all just been a bunch of brainstorming and might get completely thrown out. But like if you take these derived skills, what if there was a list of just say 100 different derived skills, and you've got to choose like 8 of them, and those become kind of like blocks that you just drag onto your character. Those are going to be the 8 derived skills that define your character. And 8's just an arbitrary number I just came up with off the top of my head. So you're foregoing the other 92, and those no longer apply to your character. Then maybe later on, through a process not entirely unlike WoW respecking, you could do away with some in order to open up slots to pull in others, to try out different things, and thereby redefine the role, the class of your character in a way, just by swapping out those skills. Treat them like modular blocks of which you can only hold a certain number.
Yeah.
Am I still here?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're here
you're
now.
still
Yeah. Oh, you have something to say?
What you just said inspired something. Well, why can't you, when you start the game, you can only choose one skill, master that skill, you can now master 2 skills up to like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever.
I just don't like I don't like the idea of forcing someone to master things in a linear manner. Not everybody studies that way. I mean, I might want to study a little bit of guitar tonight and then work on my programming skills later on in the evening. And I shouldn't have to get all the way through mastery of classical guitar before I start learning how to program in C#. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but at the same time, it might be interesting to look at opening up more skill slots at a later time.
Yeah, and I'm totally
increase
cool
more
with that.
gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm completely down with that. As you've mastered something, it opens up more complex skill sets that you can work on that are based on the foundation of the set that you've just mastered, without a doubt.
What if I think what Nelson is on the lines of what he's thinking about is for different skills that don't relate. Were you talking about skills that don't relate? Is that right?
Possibly, yeah.
Or were you just thinking a single skill at start?
Well, I can augment what I said based off Zach's criticism. So you start off with 3 skills, and then when you master all 3 of them, then you get 3 more skills that you can, in addition, choose to tack on or something. I don't know. There's just an idea. But I think what you said as far as opening up more complex, not really skill trees or something. Trees of some sort. Stuff and things.
If they're not related skills, why not say, okay, you can have just as an arbitrary number, three different skills, and maybe you choose them. You put the point in each, or you just click on, say, yeah, I want to learn that skill, and not necessarily have to master each, but you can work on one and then work on another. And I'm not really sure how it.
Yeah, I like the idea of I'm constantly going back to the story now, and picturing things in that world. I mean, if I had just landed on Alethea and was, at the human colony and just got my briefing, obviously there's going to be all sorts of things I could start learning. Let's pretend I just started out as just a regular civilian, but maybe I want to, start going out and helping with exploration or whatever. So I might be interested in some form of weapons training. I might be interested in studying more about the Aletheans for being an interpreter or being able to communicate with them. I don't know. I'm just, but instead of saying here are 3 things, and I know that was just an example number, I like the idea of a more complex set of starting possibilities that I could start looking at, and then you master one of those things, and then you could move on to. It could, we'll just use a tree. It could branch out then and become, different areas in which you could specialize. and become, more tuned to a specific skill set within a starting tree. Go ahead.
Right, exactly. I think the two things that I think are really appealing to that, in my eyes, is one, it's gradual, so you're not forced to make a million choices when you start off the game, and as you progress, you are still only making a few changes. Like once you master, as long as I'm understanding what you're saying right, but instead of when you level up and you have to choose to stick, 15 skill points into, 50 different abilities, instead you get a more gradual change. Like once you finish you complete a branch of this thing, you can now choose to start on another branch, and then in addition have those things not be fine-grained, but be, well, relatively speaking. So instead of when you level up, you choose to pour points in agility. In this case, when you finish this particular skill, you can now choose to go into another skill. So, like, what I'm saying is the reason it sounds appealing to me is because you're no longer forced to think about things in terms of minute numbers, and you're not overwhelmed with decisions, but it could still lead to a good amount of personalization during the course of your gameplay.
Absolutely, and I like the idea myself. If you take it even further, imagine if you started out with, now I'm just going to throw a big number out, with 50 different things that you could start looking into. But imagine as you start out with just a few, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and so you find a few things that sound interesting and cool. So you start doing whatever's required to start mastering that particular element, which is improving you in some way, and you complete that. It opens up, and now you've got, say, 3 things from that allow you to get a little bit more specialized. But what would be really interesting is that suddenly you start bringing the big picture, the big tree. Different areas start getting all kind of filled in of where you've become specialized at. Wouldn't it be interesting if something from weapons and then something from way down here with some other category, those two things, once you mastered both of these specific elements further down the tree, they suddenly tied together to open a new set that was related between those two? You could really come up with some very complex scenarios. This would definitely make it a lot harder for someone to say, here's the perfect build.
Yeah, I'm all for tech trees. I mean, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, even in the real world, isn't it pretty much like that? I mean, I could go out and go get my basic education, my basic higher education at college, and then I can start specializing on something. I've got to specialize before I can move on to an even more specialized subset of it, or to master something even further. Zach, you look like you had something you wanted to toss in on that.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
Is that what Nelson was saying? Because I thought he was saying something a little bit differently, even though I think he was including that.
Well, initially I was saying something completely different, but now I'm starting to more agree with Jason. The only thing that I would be cautious about is making things, I don't know, too complex.
I understand.
Or making things unbalanced, because that's the biggest thing, making it to where certain skills are just not desirable, so people don't even bother to unlock those trees, in which case you get back to the point where people go to Google and find out what the best
Absolutely,
skill
but
tree
I
progression is.
honestly think it would be our job to make sure that every single thing that got introduced was
At least viable.
I would say relevant and
Interesting.
Yeah, because I thought that one of the things that, and I could be wrong, but I thought one of the things that Nelson was saying, and I thought you were agreeing with, was that you'd have non-related skills, but you could only learn one skill set at a time. Is that not?
Yeah, well, Zach kind of came in with a good counter-argument, saying that it might be boring to a player that can't.
Yeah, that would be boring to me, personally.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, yeah, I like the idea of, and I'm just going to stick with my giant number 50. Imagine if you just landed at the colony on Alethea, and it's almost like you're presented with the college catalog. There's 50 different new things that I could start learning about. Now, of course, things may cost money or may cost whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we can do here to start making some of these roads a little bit more difficult to travel. But the fact that today I might want to work on, X, and tomorrow I might want to work on Y because I got bored of working on X all damn night long. But then suddenly I go back to X and I've mastered it, and it opens up so where I can do, X sub 1, X sub 2, and X sub 3. I could start working on one of those. And I'm speaking, of course, very generally at the moment, hoping to it helps with putting a picture in people's heads, kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, like Unity put a good example of there, and Lurch with, programming, then C#, and then now game programming derivatives. I mean, obviously you're becoming more specialized. You're becoming better in a specific area. And I know, Nelson, we're really getting into what would equate to making a very complex simulation, because at the end of the day, that's how I always view an MMO. It's really just a simulation that's playing out on a server or a set of servers. But
that's something that kind of ties in to me. The complexity of it all is going to continue to increase. The numbers behind each skill and each ability are you're going to have to be cross-referencing them against, what's your chance to hit with this spell? Great. Now, what's the enemy's ability to dodge or absorb or mitigate said damage, etc., and so forth? That stuff gets really complicated. And then you get situations like what I can only be mostly 99% certain that folks like Blizzard try to make sure that that math is not super easy to figure out. That they will throw curveballs into it, either to help simulate some higher degree of quote-unquote reality, or to just make it a little more obscure, so that it's not so easy for somebody to say, well, this is obviously the best way to go.
In my opinion, I don't think that it's really complex math. I think they just have a high number of variables, because if you go over to Elitist Jerks, they've got all of the formulas figured out.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking it one way or the other. I'm just saying it does get really complicated, and I think that's part of the nature of that is that because of all of that complication, you will sooner or later end up with the most. I'll just say, I won't say the best. I'll say the most damage efficient build for a particular character, and then people will Google that, and those who just want to do damage are going to look up that build. But
here's a real quick and easy way to do what you want, Zach, that could be implemented. Using each character that you generate gets a seed that they never see. That seed applies a plus and minus to all their abilities and numbers, and you call it genetics. So even if you followed some sort of formula, that may not be the best build for you, just because of the way your character was born.
That's interesting,
that's
though.
Interesting, but I can already hear the emails.
NATO. That isn't fair.
Yeah, exactly. That's.
I want to Google and find out an exact step A, B, C.
It
You're
doesn't
the best.
matter. It's like going, I would love to play guitar, but I was born with a very inferior sense of rhythm. That hampers me at every step trying to learn.
I thought it was your hands, Lee.
Nah, that's just because.
Actually, that's really interesting concept of actually establishing some sort of identity for your virtual character beyond what you project onto him. Kind of like in a single player, a well put together single player game is always going to have a huge backstory for your character. And I kind of like the feeling of instead of me going into a game and trying to project everything that I like to do onto my character, it would be interesting to have some sort of constraints or some sort of backstory or some sort of variables that are determined for me. I think that would make things more interesting, in my opinion, at least.
I think that's where as cool as the idea is, I think that's where you cross the line and go from cool real world to diminishing the game by way of the real world. Because hang on, let me finish my freaking statement and then you can talk.
Well, then hurry up and speak faster, damn it.
No, I'm going to pace myself, make sure everybody understands. The problem with that is that you can now have two characters of opposite factions who are basically running, let's just say for sake of argument, the exact same type of character. They both put the exact same amount of time into it. They both make all the exact same decisions. But now one is always going to be superior in some form or fashion. And yes, that reflects the real world. But that's no fun for the guy who just got the unfair draw on your random seed idea.
I don't think so. I think if you know, if there's some way for the game to tell you what your character will be good at, then it's incredibly less likely for a person to pursue something that will
And
be.
I cannot disagree any more strongly because I might.
Gypsy has said, I didn't mean to cut you off.
all right, it's all
Gypsy
good.
has said the perfect thing, though, which is he is just better at something else. But go ahead.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, so I end up playing the game, knowing full well when I start off that I want to play this, I don't know, this lightning caster guy that I've read about and just looks really interesting. But I start my player, and now this genetic thing has actually made that no longer as viable for me as it would have. I don't agree with that. As cool as it is, and I am right here saying it's a very interesting concept. In terms of a game, I just no.
I think, but no, like I said again with single player games,
Yeah.
where your characters do have limitations, they do have backstories, they do have personalities that are outside of the player,
Yeah.
or not the player, the person playing, and it'd be interesting to manifest that in an MMO where you go in and say, I want to start a new character, and then you learn about your character, what his strengths and weaknesses are, and then you start playing towards those strengths and weaknesses. It would also give people a sense of uniqueness and identity in the world.
I also like what Gypsy has just said. He's my hero tonight. Microtransactions could offer genetic reconstruction.
Sure.
See, I'm not saying that once you roll your
Reforging
genetics, you're stuck with it. You can go through. It is modern. You go through. It just takes you longer. You have to work harder, or maybe even pay for enhancements to get the same way somebody else is.
Yeah.
If
But
you
why-
want to be that lightning guy, and you weren't quite born with the skills, then you need to work harder at it to be just as good.
Steven, what were you going to say?
Great. So now the game costs
why-
me more money because of a random seed.
Well, then you don't like it. Roll your character again.
Go ahead, Steve.
Why
Sorry.
wouldn't you just re-roll?
I think you're missing the point, though, of what I'm trying to say, is I think it could add more depth to the game. Because,
But also- Why wouldn't somebody just re-roll once they didn't like what they started out with?
Exactly. Thereby defeating the purpose of the whole thing.
but don't like, I mean, when I go into an RPG, I don't know what I'm going to end up liking or not. Like, I don't know.
Well, it kind of depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you roll something that's only going to be good at using magic, and you wanted to be a badass warrior, you're not going to be real happy with it, right?
I don't think anybody's really happy with.
I come down. I like what Lee was saying, and I like what Harry's son was saying as well, which is don't tell them. You kind of go through a discovery with your character. I like the idea of not saying that you could never become the best at what you want to become, but mapping out how to get from point A to point Z would be impossible. Which means then you could not Google the perfect build, which of course with World of Warcraft you could do in about 5 seconds from now. I could show you the perfect build for any character. This would make it. This has the potential to make it much more difficult, make it a much richer experience to get your character to a point where if you were doing some sort of, I'm just going to call it a raid, where people go, holy crap, how in the hell are you pulling off that kind of damage? Because it's not like, let me look at his talent tree. Oh, well, yeah, of course, he's using the standard spec that, well, everybody should be using. I don't know. I do like the variation. Go ahead, Stephen.
That's a good point, Jason. That made me look at it a little bit differently. But what you're talking about if it was hidden. Because if it wasn't hidden, it seems like people would still do the math.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know how we do this. I mean, right now it's just brainstorming. I just like what Lee said. I like the concept, the idea. And
it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, and I really like what Nelson said. It gives each character their own unique identity, more or less, in the world. Now it's up to you, the player, to shape that character into the character that you want. But you can't go to Google and just easily print out a, here's how you do it, you know. It would be a lot less black and white in the articles that you'd find on Google.
Yeah, it definitely would. I wonder what the MMO community would think of that. I wonder if that would turn people off or more than it would make people interested.
I don't know. I do know that I see so much complaining going around on the internet with just people in general with the way that MMOs are right now. People are clamoring for change, for something different. And that's just one of the reasons I want to explore these different, you know, possibilities, as opposed to, all right, your rotation's going to be 1 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 oop proc 1 4 1 1 2 3, and you have to have this talent build if you're this class. I'm wanting to look into a richer experience for somebody, because the only thing that's left in World of Warcraft for me is, and I really love the game, it's when I play the game with all my friends and we're running a raid or a dungeon, because then the organic experience is them. I have no idea how they're going to screw the pooch on this run or make it a flawless run. It all comes down to, now I'm dealing with all of these real people, which means I can't predict anything, and that is where the fun is for me then. The idea of getting in and doing dailies every day, that's the same damn thing, is well, I don't do dailies. I hate it. I don't know how Angela can still get in every night and do the same things. It's just that's not a game anymore. That's just a chore. I don't know.
What is dailies?
Mr. Steven, you're not a World of Warcraft player.
Repeatable quests that you can do each and every day, every 24-hour cycle. You can do the same quest over and over again. You're allowed to do 25 of them in any one-day cycle.
So, Zach, can you give us an example of what you used to do every damn day for 6 months?
I'd go up to the Argent Crusade area, and I would do a round of jousting on some sort of animal back, and then, go kill 15 of these guys, go free 4 guys from a random prison. Then there's a few variations. So, I mean, it was like, go kill a Hydra, go kill some Vrykul, go kill some sharks. I'm trying to remember them all.
Yeah, but and so now let me give it to you from my perspective. Hey, Zach, you mind if we come hang out with you tonight on your dailies? Yeah, sure, come along. Great. All right, so now here we are. We're jousting again, and there's Lee over in the corner bitching like always. I hate this jousting. Oh, my God.
Because he hates anything he's really natively bad at.
It's the same repetitive thing every night. You know, here we are 6 nights into it.
Hands.
And there's Lee bitching again about, jousting, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's stale.
Thank you. It gets very stale, absolutely. So the only thing that is a lot of enjoyment, that I get a lot of enjoyment out of playing World of Warcraft, is 2 things for me. One, controlling the market. I love influencing the auction house. That is an absolute blast, but that's its own kind of game. And the other one is getting in there with Zach and Angela and Lee and my brother and a lot of our other friends, and we're all connected via Skype, and we're all yelling at one another for screwing something up or high-fiving each other, digitally that is, for accomplishing something that was difficult. That's a lot of fun, but that's all that's really left of the game. Because it's not a static, because it is basically a static world. Until you get into a raid or a dungeon, and you're doing that.
Sure.
Outside of that,
it's static until you add the human element. Like anything.
Right. Well, the like I said in the IRC a while ago, is I've played D&D once, and I would have actually, if I had a car, I would be probably playing it every week, because it was lots of fun. But the most boring part of the whole experience was filling out the character sheet.
Ooh, hang on one
Over
second.
ne-
Just everybody hold the thought. We're going to take a real quick break. Zach just pointed to the time. We're at an hour 9. Let me go ahead and save this one out real quick. We will, thank you very much, Gavin. We will come right back. So use this opportunity to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thanks a lot.